What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, January 11th, 2024, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 3:46 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and Ukraine and Asia. So, last night, the Iranians stole an oil tanker that was passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, they took it back to Iran, and apparently this was in the Gulf of Oman, and they transferred it to an Iranian port in retaliation for the United States confiscating the same vessel and its oil last year. And this is coming from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps official news agency Tasnim. And Tasnim said that the seizure followed an order from an Iranian court. This tanker, whose name was changed to St. Nicholas and carrying oil in the Oman Sea, was seized in retaliation for the theft of oil by the American regime with an order from the judicial courts, and is being transferred to ports of the Islamic Republic to be delivered to the judicial authorities. So basically, this was an oil tanker that we seized from Iran, and then they seized it back. And now it's at an Iranian port. And what you're looking at here are some flights over the United States this afternoon. We currently have a nuclear war command and control plane up in the air over the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee, near Cookeville, Tennessee, and it's doing loops. Okay, look at this, guys. When these planes do loops like this, it usually means they're dropping their trailing wire antenna to communicate to our nuclear forces. And these planes are responsible for issuing the emergency war orders from the Pentagon during a nuclear war. Okay, and so these planes transmit the launch codes, okay, the launch orders to our nuclear forces. Okay, and here we have an RQ-4 Global Hawk patrolling one of our missile fields around Minot Air Force Base. So last night we had a massive amount of nuclear attack options being broadcasted. Okay, they're known as emergency action messages, and they're broadcasted by the National Military Command Center, aka the Pentagon. And these messages are sent out to U.S. nuclear forces. There were probably, I don't know, dozens and dozens last night, an unprecedented amount. And there were a lot of nuclear war command and control planes in the air last night. There was also a presidential doomsday plane doing loops over the upper peninsula of Michigan. And I'll show you guys some flight paths in a minute here. We have some major breaking news coming in, being reported by the UK Times, that the Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak, has summoned all of his cabinet for an emergency meeting on the situation in the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels. And a lot of the ministers believe that it's about the US and UK launching military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. Now, just 2 days ago, the Houthis launched a massive attack on US and allied forces in the Red Sea, the largest attack yet, okay, in the Red Sea by the Houthis. Okay, there were over 18 drones fired and 3 missiles at US forces and allied forces in the region, okay, in the Red Sea, in the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. So this all happened after the US and allies sent out a warning just after New Year's Day, saying that if the Houthis continue these actions, they're going to bear the consequences, okay? So just a week after that statement, which was considered a final warning, the Houthis launch over 20 missiles and drones at Allied forces. So now the UK is having an emergency meeting. The Prime Minister and his cabinet are having an emergency meeting tonight. I'm going to continue to monitor the situation, and I will update you later on tonight with any updates from that meeting. And apparently, Britain is in talks with the US and other allies right now over airstrikes against the Houthi rebels in response to the attacks recently. Okay, so they're already talking about it. As far back as Christmas Eve, there was breaking news that the US and the UK were in final stages of preparing for a massive strike on Yemen. Okay, so it's coming, guys. It could happen any hour, any day. We had this massive nuclear war exercise last night. Okay, dozens of nuclear attack options broadcasted, an unprecedented number. Okay, multiple nuclear war command and control planes, nuke sniffer planes, doomsday planes. Something big is about to go down, guys. You don't suddenly do a massive exercise like that for no reason. In my experience covering breaking news for the last 6 years on YouTube, anytime there's a massive amount of nuclear war command and control planes, it's usually right before a big event is about to take place. Okay, so that's just from my experience. Okay, I've been doing this a long time. And I want to remind you guys that there was a British warship that was basically attacked in the Red Sea during that massive attack 2 days ago. A British warship, the HMS Diamond, seemed to have been targeted by at least 7 drones. Okay. So most of those drones and missiles were targeting the British ship. So I'm sure Britain is not happy about it, okay, because they sent a third warship to the Red Sea to support the US. And they're not stupid. They're not just going to leave their ships there to absorb drone attacks and missile attacks for the Biden administration, because that's probably what Biden wants to do. He wants all our allies to send their ships so they absorb the attacks. So this way it makes the US look better and it doesn't hurt Biden's reelection chances, okay? But Britain's not stupid. They're not going to just leave multi-billion-dollar pieces of equipment in the Red Sea to function as a floating target for these Houthi rebels while the Biden administration figures out what to do, okay? And the British chief of staff, that's Britain's top general, called the U.S. chief of staff yesterday, shortly after that incident. Okay. And now we have this emergency meeting with the prime minister. The UN Security Council approved a resolution against the Houthis. Okay. Basically allowing countries to defend themselves and take necessary actions to protect themselves. So things are getting serious, guys. Let me just show you a picture here that was posted by the Iranian media. And here's that oil tanker right here. Okay, and it's already in Iran. And here's the actual warning that was put out by the British Maritime Organization. And it says here that they received a report of a vessel being boarded by 4 to 5 unarmed, unauthorized persons. And they were wearing military-style black uniforms with black masks. The vessel altered course towards Iranian territorial waters, and communications with the vessel have been lost. And this is the UN Security Council resolution, okay? It also emphasizes the need to address the root causes of the attack that are contributing to regional tensions to ensure prompt, efficient, and effective response. Okay? Address the root causes. Okay, so things are about to get crazy, guys. Here's a screenshot of the presidential doomsday plane that was airborne late last night, all night, doing loops over the upper peninsula of Michigan. It actually got aerially refueled over Illinois, and it had its transponder off for a short amount of time. Here we have two nuclear war command and control planes that were airborne off the coast of Virginia last night. And they were up there basically all night for several hours. And then earlier in the day, yesterday, we had three more nuclear war command and control planes that were airborne. And we also had two nuke sniffers, a high priority reconnaissance plane, and this doomsday plane. This is when the presidential doomsday plane got aerially refueled by a KC 135 that came out of Milwaukee. And here's a closer shot, okay, of these two planes flying together. And then here you can see the doomsday plane turned its transponder off. Okay, this is the flight path of the doomsday plane. You can see it just disappeared from the flight tracker. So things are really escalating around the world. And Greece has just announced that it's sending a Hydra class frigate to the Red Sea to provide deterrence against the Houthi attacks on international maritime trade. And I want to remind you that India said they're going to be sending 10 warships to the region. Okay. Britain is sending a third, and now Greece is sending one. So you can see that the buildup is happening right before the massive strike. And then we also have the situation between Israel and Lebanon. That's about to pop off very soon. Israel's going to have to go in and attack Hezbollah and push them away from the border, because there's 250,000 Israelis that had to evacuate from the northern part of Israel, because the northern part of Israel has been attacked by Hezbollah on a daily basis since the start of the war in Gaza. So 250,000 people are gone from northern Israel, and Israel wants to bring those people back to where they used to live, okay? And Axios is reporting that Biden's advisor will discuss in Lebanon how to reach understandings to restore calm on the border. This is that guy, Hochstein. Hochstein is in Lebanon, in Beirut right now. He's supposed to basically try to figure out how to prevent Israel and Hezbollah from going to war, but I don't think it's going to work. And Prime Minister Najib Mikati met with the U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein at the government palace in Beirut. Okay, so the Prime Minister of Lebanon met with Biden's advisor. And you can see that all these Western diplomats are going to Israel and the Middle East this week, basically to stop a major escalation. Okay, we have Joseph Borrell, the foreign minister of the EU, going to the Middle East. We have Amos Hochstein, okay, an advisor for the Biden administration. We had Anthony Blinken meet with Netanyahu. Okay, apparently the meeting was very tense. Okay, we also had the foreign minister of Germany. So this is basically the last attempt for the West to try to talk Israel out of attacking Hezbollah. Okay, and this update was sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing a 25% off sale on their 4-week emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you have to go to preparewith.nyprepper.com. And again, that's 25% off of their 4-week emergency food supply. That's a $60 discount. And the food supply includes over 2,000 calories per day, up to a 25-year shelf life. It's packed into 2 rugged buckets and weighs 38 pounds total. Free shipping is included. And what's great about this is you have 4 weeks of food in just 2 buckets. You can easily put that anywhere. And if you have to bug out, you can easily throw that in your vehicle. Now, My Patriot Supply also has a general store where they sell pretty much any prepping and survival related product you could imagine. To get to their general store, you have to go to the My Patriot Supply logo at the top of the preparewithnyprepper.com webpage. You click on that logo, and it takes you to their general store, and you can see they have pretty much anything you could imagine. They have potassium iodide at a great price. I have a few of these. They also have survival bars, survival seeds, water filters, solar generators, anything you can imagine. So check out preparewithnyprepper.com to get 25% off of the My Patriot Supply 1 month emergency food supply. The link is in the description below this video. And special forces units with the Colombian army have been deployed today along the border with Ecuador to support the Colombian National Police in the protection of the country's sovereignty against the ongoing armed conflict in Ecuador. And here we have a picture of the border here between Colombia and Ecuador, and you can see a bunch of soldiers here standing on this bridge, Colombian soldiers. Here's another picture of Colombian soldiers protecting this rural road to prevent any gang members from coming into Colombia, I guess. And President Daniel Noboa of Ecuador stated, "We are actively seeking international funding and assistance in the realm of security." He mentioned that they have received proposals from the US, China, Israel, and Argentina. He also mentioned that they have already replaced a lot of their old Soviet equipment with modern Western equipment. And Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia and now the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, warned in a post on his Telegram channel that should Ukraine attack missile launch sites on Russian soil using long-range missiles provided by the West, Moscow could respond with a nuclear strike. This is not about a right to self-defense, but a direct and obvious basis for our use of nuclear weapons against such a state, wrote Medvedev. And in 2023, 500,000 Russians went to war with Ukraine, according to Medvedev. And North Korea has provided Russia with 5,000 rail containers of weapons. And apparently, Russia is now using these weapons against Ukrainian cities as testing for their missile program. And this is coming from South Korea's defense minister. So North Korea is sending Russia a bunch of stuff so they could see how it works, okay? And the West is doing the same thing. We're sending weapons to Ukraine to see how they would actually work against Russia so we could fine tune them, okay? So both sides are doing it, okay? And Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is wrapping up a tour of the Baltic countries today. He's in Latvia now, and he said yesterday in his visit to Estonia that any pauses in the conflict would help Russia. Latvian President Edgars Rinkēvičs announced on January 11th, which is today, a new military aid package for Ukraine, including howitzers, drones, munitions, and more. He said this during a joint press conference with his Ukrainian counterpart, Vladimir Zelensky. This comes after Lithuania pledged the equivalent of $200 million in military aid to Ukraine over 3 years. Okay, so Zelensky's going to the Baltics now to try to get equipment because the rest of the West is failing to agree on aid packages. The EU has postponed their vote on the massive 50 billion euro aid package. The US is still working out a deal on their aid package. So Zelensky is now going to the Baltics to try to get some help. And we have a high-ranking Ukrainian general saying that Russia is launching counteroffensives at 3 locations in the eastern part of Ukraine. He said the situation on the Eastern Front remains difficult as Russian forces continue offensive operations in the Kupiansk, Liman, and Bakhmut directions. Colonel General Alexander Syrsky said today, January the 11th, and Syrsky is the guy who was responsible for that big counterattack early on in the war where Ukraine took back Kupiansk, Kharkiv, and Kherson. Okay, that was his baby. Okay, that was his plan. He was responsible for that. And Russia continues shelling hotels in the Kharkiv region. At least 11 people were injured last night in an attack on a hotel. There were Turkish journalists there at the hotel. Apparently, Russia is targeting these hotels because they're known to be used by foreign journalists and foreign agents. And China warned Taiwan's voters Thursday to make the correct choice in the island's weekend elections, describing the presidential frontrunner as a severe danger who would threaten peace by following the evil path of independence. Wow, guys, that is so arrogant for China to basically threaten Taiwan's population and tell them how they should vote or else they're going to get attacked. Absolutely ridiculous, guys. And that's just another sign that we're living in the end times. Okay. All these big powers are getting more and more aggressive and arrogant, and they're defying God. Okay. And it looks like Ukraine launched another drone attack on Russia last night. Apparently, a drone crashed through the roof of a commercial building in the Voronezh region last night. No one was injured. Also, Russian air defense intercepted drones over the Rostov, Tula, and Kaluga regions, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. A drone exploded over a technical structure of a pumping station on the outskirts of Kaluga. The building was damaged. And just a few days ago, Ukraine launched a drone at a nuclear power plant in Kursk in Russia. Okay, so Ukraine is definitely getting more bold with their drone attacks. And U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks claims that China and Russia are implementing systems that can be used to jam our GPS system. According to the American politician, this is intended to weaken the U.S. military potential. Hicks says Moscow and Beijing are seeking to transform outer space into a combat sphere. I want to just share this video coming out of northern Ukraine. Apparently, Zelensky has ordered the Ukrainian military to build a massive line of fortifications along the entire border with Belarus, stretching from Kharkiv all the way to Poland, okay, to the Polish border. So, what you see here is video footage of the Ukrainian military building this massive fortification line with trenches, anti tank obstacles. And I think this is just the beginning, guys. I think that what Ukraine is going to do is they're going to try to build this massive fortification line similar to the Maginot Line. I don't know if you guys remember the Maginot Line. In World War II, the French built this massive fortification line with bunkers and trenches and anti tank obstacles. It was like several miles wide. And what Hitler actually did was instead of going through the Maginot Line, he just went around it. And so all the efforts by the French to build this Maginot Line were basically a waste. I mean, it was very impressive. The Maginot Line was very impressive, but they couldn't stretch the Maginot Line across their entire border with Germany. And so because of that, Hitler found a little spot that he could go through where the Maginot Line didn't exist, and he exploited it. But this is definitely a good thing for Ukraine because they have a massive border with Belarus, and apparently Belarus has been building military towns in southern Belarus along the border with Ukraine that they could use as bases in the event of another invasion attempt. Okay, so here they're putting up dragon's teeth. So this is nothing more than to slow down ground forces. It's not, end all be all solution. It's just to delay an invasion. It's not necessarily going to stop it entirely, but it will slow down the movement of tanks and infantry. Okay, you can see these trenches and bunker systems here. It looks like this is the beginning stages of a massive fortification. You can see they're putting rebar here, guys. When you're putting rebar in somewhere, that means it's a permanent structure that you're building. Okay, rebar is for concrete. Okay, if this was just going to be temporary, they would just put blocks or logs or something like that. But they're actually putting rebar in, which tells me that this is going to be like a permanent fortification that they're building. And here you can see this bunker that they have here. Okay. So it looks like Ukraine is building their version of the Maginot Line. And apparently, Donald Trump told the head of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, in 2020 that he would never come to the aid of Europe in the event of an attack and that NATO was dead. This was reported by Politico, quoting the EU Commissioner Thierry Breton. So that's the latest breaking news that I have, guys. Okay, it looks like the US and allied forces are getting ready to launch a massive strike on Yemen. Potentially hundreds of missiles could be used. And when that happens, I will go live 24/7. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon below so you get notified when I post these updates and when I do go live when that happens. And I'll be back later on this evening with another update. So until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.